Hi, future Jess here. I wanted to announce that our Patreon is up and live. We appreciate you all so much for the support that you've shown us. If you choose to also support us through Patreon, we can guarantee that everything we receive will go back toward the show. You can find us by going to patreon.com/Dungeons Dopamine, or you can find the link on any of our social medias. Thank you so much. We love you. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine. Ta-da!
Hello. Welcome to week 18 of Dungeons and Dopamine. I'm Bree.
I'm Jess.
And I wish you could see the way we move our heads when we do that part.
Do we?
Obnoxious.
No,
we're
it's
just going to have
adorable.
to start recording us.
I love myself on video.
Yeah,
That's
me
why I
too.
chose to do podcast.
Totally my favorite.
You know, this is totally random, and I'm hijacking everything right now. But I actually thought about doing like a follower group, like monthly challenge-y type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me personally. I want to go on like a weight loss journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it would be kind of fun for all of the people who listen to like hold me accountable.
Dude, listen. Sorry, I called you dude. I got excited.
I am a dude. He's a dude. She's a dude.
Thank you for that. That actually ties in really well to my topic today, and even though this is going to be made up on the spot, we are totally going to make this work.
Yes,
Yeah.
I kind of wanted it, and I'm like, well, then maybe people could join me, and I could put together, like, I am no health expert. I just want to exercise a little bit every day, and I would even be willing to like meet up and walk with people and stuff.
Yes.
And be held accountable. And I thought, well, like, I have a podcast now. I could talk about it on this.
Mm-hmm.
But then I didn't want it to feel like I was self-serving, because I thought I could make like TikTok videos and...
No, I think it's great. Both because I also need to be held accountable on a different journey, and because I am always up for things that help us be healthier. And I know a lot of people or a lot of businesses or whatever will do like a VIP Facebook group where they connect with followers or you know, business partners or whoever, and they talk within that. And ours could absolutely be about being healthier together or making good choices or bringing dopamine to our lives.
We could title it Dungeons and Exercise.
Or no. No Dungeons and Exercise.
Look.
I do not want to join that group. We may have to stick to the dopamine side of our name for this one.
Dragons and Exercise? Run like your life depends on it.
Dope heads. So, in a book series that my husband and Jessica's husband and I read called Dungeon Crawler Carl, the characters have a fan club, and one of the characters is a cat that is intelligent and can talk. And her name is Princess Donut, and her followers are called Donut Holes.
I'm trying to think if we ever had a fandom,
what it would be called.
Mm-hmm. We should also come up with like our celebrity name. Anyway,
yes,
I didn't mean to hijack that. I just thought of it.
I love it, and we will circle around back to that before the end of this episode.
All right, transition.
I don't know why I feel like I have to keep my topic a secret until we get to there, but I am. Shh. You guys have to wait a whole like 5 more minutes before you know what I'm talking about today.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe. I'm up for a solid Lord of the Rings reference anytime. So I've been holding on to something. It's not nearly as exciting as I just made it sound.
It really sounds like you're gonna like
announce like a big thing.
Or lecture me on something.
Oh, yes.
I've been holding on to something so I could get you on air.
One time when we were in 6th grade, you said, no. So, I've been wanting to share this and get this out, and I keep forgetting when we're recording. And I've held on to it without speaking to you about it since I heard it.
Incredible.
Yes.
Because we talk every day.
Every day.
And we've seen each other quite a few times.
Yeah.
In recent days.
In social settings.
Yes.
So, Ryan follows this guy on TikTok. And he has been an ADHD doctor since 1977.
Wow.
Which is incredible in itself, because in 1977, I feel like they just went, kids act bad.
Something's wrong with your kid. You should
Too much
probably
sugar.
spank him more.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to pull up his name. His name is Dr. Russell Barkley. I'm newly obsessed with him. Poor Dr. Russell. I've even asked if we could have him speak at my work.
Oh,
which
wow.
would be super cool.
Yeah, it would.
So,
he can also come speak here. That would be
yes, absolutely. We are working on some guest stars we didn't expect.
cool. Yes, we are.
So, Dr. Russell, one day while Ryan was watching him, I was overhearing it, and I was getting really mad at what he was saying. And he was basically saying that people with ADHD need to stop talking about ADHD like it's a superpower. And I was like, but that makes us feel good about something that is bad for us. But he went on to explain, and I thought, like, this just took me from being mad to being like, oh my gosh. He said, what we're doing is let's use a workplace, for example. We're walking in and saying, like, I'm amazing. I have ADHD. I can do all this cool stuff. No one can stop me. I'm amazing. Also,
I say that every day.
Well, hey, that's actually great. But then we say, like, also, I have ADHD and I need you to make all these exceptions for me. And they're like, but you just said it was a superpower.
Right?
Why do we need to make an exception? We're going to hold you to higher standards because you have a superpower. And it was like a light bulb went off, and I never thought of it that way. It's like, it's so cool. We're empowering ourselves.
Well, and there's also what because I agree with him. And
Yeah.
and when I was researching, like, the intuition one, part of what bothers me with it is I don't feel like a superhero some days.
Right.
So if I'm being bombarded with these messages that my ADHD should make me a superhero, and I'm not maintaining well with life, or I'm not getting my things done, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, now I feel extra broken because all these other ADHD people are succeeding, and they're like CEOs, and they run companies, and they're entrepreneurs, and, I'm happy to make it through a Tuesday.
I never thought of it that way either. While he was explaining all this, I was getting mad. And then when I heard the rest of what he had to say, I'm like, shoot, that's so real. And I've been dying to talk about it. I heard it weeks ago and then forgot.
I think getting that information out is helpful. I also think or wish they would change the name of ADHD and take away the attention deficit part, because it makes people think everybody has ADHD, because they think if they get distracted by a squirrel, they must have ADHD. But it's so much more underlying symptoms and problems and disconnects that everybody just gets focused on, well, we all have a little ADHD. I can't focus sometimes too.
I've had medical professionals say, well, millennials want everything to be ADHD. And I'm like,
No, I don't.
I don't want to have ADHD. I want to be a regular functioning individual.
I would like to be interested in my job for more than two years. I would like to be able to get up and clean my house on a Saturday when I know that's what I should do, instead of telling my brain all day long that I need to clean and instead staying in bed to read a book.
So I thought that was really interesting.
I wish there was a way, you know how they have those like labor simulator machines now that men can wear to feel what labor feels like? I wish they had one of those for ADHD.
Yeah.
And one for like neurotypical brains. I just want to know what it sounds like in there.
Yeah. Well, and what it's like to see that something needs to be done. For example, my laundry needs to be done. And I know it needs to be done. And it goes beyond I just don't want to I can't because my brain won't feel fulfilled by that task.
And now it's overwhelming because it piles up every day. And
constantly.
That makes it worse.
Yes. It's so ridiculous. So, anyway, I thought that was like a wonderful thought, and I was astonished, and I was mad.
Yeah.
And the fact that I got mad first made me want to talk about it even more. Because then I was
And I see that point too. Like, I'm tired of being told I'm broken. Sometimes, or when I am kind of rocking it at work and people are like, oh, you're really good at this. I can be like, yeah, it's because I have ADHD and I'm really good at jumping from thing to thing to thing and going down rabbit holes and obsessing over the most random things.
I saw the DP on your face. The most random things, and then a tear ran down your cheek.
All the things.
So, let's do a weight loss journey.
Yeah. Or, so, transition. And the reason I was also thumbs downing your Dungeons and Exercise name is because the accountability I'm looking for and my topic today is actually about depression. And I am going to get very honest in this one. I'm going to try not to cry. This is very uncomfortable for me. I am not, as much as I'm a people person and sometimes an oversharer because of ADHD, I do not share the bad parts of my life with anybody but like 3 people. So, the reason I chose depression and the reason I am sharing my story is because, as I mentioned before, I think social media has kind of hurt our brains in that everybody posts their own perfect pictures and gives this vision of a happy, beautiful life, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I did that. I did that this week. I was at a music festival this past weekend. It is my favorite music festival. It is my favorite time of year, and it's my happy place. I look forward to it every year. I use it kind of as a reset. So it's always my chance, no matter what's going on, to get away from it all, be with people I love at a place that's just relaxing and friendly and hippie-ish. And my depression ruined it for me this year.
No, you're kidding.
It was awful. I struggled to have any energy to keep up with people. I struggled to keep my mind in the present versus what was going on in the other parts of my life. I got very overwhelmed and overstimulated very easily, which I was not expecting and I did not know how to handle. If you've ever been to a music festival, it's a lot of loud, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of chaos.
Well, in this particular one, you don't really, even when there's not something going on, there's something going on.
Yeah. And I have been going to this festival for 20 years and have created and curated a group of 35 to 45 people that join us. And I am expected to be a certain person at Wheatland. You know, the matriarch or the person that, you know, not the leader, well, kind of the leader, but also just if it's your first time at Wheatland, introducing you to how it is and just the feeling that you get from Wheatland. I cried every day I was there this weekend. I cried the hardest Sunday morning because I knew I had been robbed of my weekend, and I did not know how I was going to get back to the real world without having that reset. And that was kind of my wake-up call. I don't think I had realized my depression had gotten that bad. I do see a psychiatrist, and I have been speaking with her the last couple months and working with her in my medications. But knowing that even being in my favorite place on earth could not distract me made me realize that it had become a problem. But, on Sunday I got home, and because people had asked about pictures, I posted my Wheatland pictures. I made a comment, a caption about it, a wonderful place with wonderful people or whatever, and gave this impression that it still was a good Wheatland. And
Sure.
the feelings were still there, the beautiful moments and great music, and we brought the kids.
And hopefully in, a year or 2 years, when you look back on it, you'll remember the good stuff only.
Yes. And I believe that'll be true. I had a lot of great moments with Connor. It was his first Wheatland that he's been old enough to really experience it in the best way. But when I got home, I knew I had to do something else. And the thing about depression for me is it's a beast. It really screws with me, and I know with other people. Depression kind of takes a hold and not only makes me miserable, but then it convinces me that I don't want to take the steps to fix it. So,
Because you're tired.
yes, and I logistically and logically I know what it takes to get out of a funk. I know that it involves taking care of myself. I know that it involves getting enough sleep and eating the right foods and getting exercise. And, positive thinking and grateful thoughts and all these things. I know every step I need to take. But the depression convinces me I don't want to. It almost becomes a self-destructive spiral.
Yeah.
Because I know what I need to do, but I don't want to do it. And then I even make worse choices that are, I stay up all night reading or doom scrolling, even though my brain the whole time is going, this isn't a good idea. This isn't good for us. This is going to make tomorrow feel worse. And it just steals everything from you. It steals you from your friends. It steals you from your family. It steals you from your work, your kids, your hobbies. Steals you from yourself.
I know that most people don't know a lot of the symptoms of depression or how serious they can be. And I know, speaking on healthy part of it, you're supposed to eat healthy to get yourself feeling better. You don't have the energy to make the good food.
Mm-hmm.
And the not good food is really easy to unwrap from a package and eat because you know you have to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, some people don't eat, and some people want to eat all of the things.
And you never want to sit down with a bag of baby carrots.
No.
You want to sit down with a bag of potato chips. Yeah. So, and especially then you add ADHD, and so now not only do I not want to cook because I don't want to cook because I'm tired and I'm depressed, but also cooking is inefficient and my ADHD doesn't like it. It dirties a lot of dishes, there's a lot of cleanup, there's a lot of prep work.
There's very little reward.
I would rather put a pizza in the oven. Mm-hmm. If I could make pizza the perfect food somehow, I would eat pizza every day.
I mean, and even like a veggie pizza, literally made of veggies, isn't actually good for you.
Right. You just can't win. So, my part of the accountability group is I started a new journey this week to work through this depression. Because I am already medicated and because I am already working with my psychiatrist on that, I want to work on some behavioral health changes that I have known I need to make and have been actively avoiding, such as getting enough sleep, exercising, and, eating real food once in a while, like fruits and vegetables and things like that. So, I love your idea of an accountability group because I need it too. And I, towards the end of this, I will actually talk about an app that I started using that we could talk about in the group. And really just being able to check in and being this type of podcast that focuses on dopamine and a lot about health and things, I think it would be great if we could pass that on to people that want to hang out with us.
And there's some information we could share, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm hijacking in the middle, but Ryan was actually just researching the other day how sugar and dopamine act the same for your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, especially if you're ADHD, you'll go grab a bag of sour gummy worms. I'm targeting him because he told me today he's eating sour gummy worms.
I brought an entire bag of Nerd gummy clusters over.
Ooh.
Even though I finished a bag yesterday.
Health journey starts tomorrow.
Yes.
But I would love to be able to link articles like that and like blurbs and stuff in the group.
Absolutely.
And have other people contribute.
Or like red dye number 40 is supposedly linked to ADHD symptoms. And if you shop at Aldi versus other grocery stores, Aldi actually doesn't sell anything with some of the dyes that people are worried about in other countries that we don't care about here.
I remember reading that now, and it didn't really register a lot. They were saying Aldi was great for kids with allergies to these dyes. Oh, see, this is great. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, that was my wake-up call. My music festival weekend involving crying was my wake-up call. And I wanted to use this episode to talk about it both because I wanted to be honest about it, because maybe there are other people out there struggling, and because I think depression and ADHD are very hand in hand, but also a lot of people end up misdiagnosed with depression when it is ADHD. And I wanted to kind of explain how they work together or how they mimic each other to kind of, especially with what you just went through, give people an idea of what might be depression and what might be ADHD and how you reconcile that in your brain. So I have two disclaimers, of course. Again, I am not a medical doctor. Nothing in here is meant to diagnose anybody or treat anybody. It's all internet research. I did find it all on Google Scholar, so it's at least medical literature. If you think you are depressed, if you need help, you should seek help from a medical professional. The national hotline in the United States now, the number is 988.
Yes.
And
September is Suicide Awareness Month. This will come out in September. Never, ever hesitate to call that number.
Yes.
Ever.
You are needed. You are wanted on this earth, no matter who you are. And so reach out, get the help you need. That's what I'm doing. Not that I was ever near that point, but I needed a lifeline after this weekend. And so this is it. This podcast is my lifeline. So there's my soapbox. I'm sad, but I don't want to be anymore. So I am going to work on it. And if you are also on the struggle bus lately, because I know a lot of my friends have been on the struggle bus lately, you're not alone. And it's probably not your fault. So like I said, I did do scholarly research. I found a couple articles first, but I really ended up focusing on just one, mostly because they had kind of already done all my work for me. It's a research paper where they really just went through years and years and years of research papers and compiled all the data into one convenient paper for me to read.
What a job.
Right?
I don't know if I like that or hate that. Depends on the dopamine
I wouldn't be able to do
it
it every day.
It's also, I feel like because I can connect with it, it would make me cry a lot. Like I've almost already cried. I know you have, but I have also almost cried already.
There is one part in here that may make you cry.
Super.
It definitely made me cry. So starting with just how prevalent, and again, this is specifically depression linked with ADHD, and this paper actually also went into the autism spectrum disorders, which I thought would be pretty much the same with how the research worked out, but there are differences in how an ASD brain reacts versus an ADHD brain.
Oh, that's
which is
really
very interesting to me. The basic statistics, there were a lot of different papers on this. It says depression rates in ADHD can range anywhere from 0% to almost 45%, depending on which paper you read. But most of them seem to be right around 20% of those with ADHD have depression. And up to 44% of ADHD people will have at least one depressive episode before they hit 30.
Wow.
So it's almost half of us. In ASD disorders, it's actually down or closer to 10% in youth, which sounds like a low number, but it's actually 4 times higher than typical youth.
Holy cow.
And it increases as people age. So by the time they hit about 30, it's right about at that 20 to 45%, like ADHD. So this paper kind of broke it down into 4 different causes or researched causes for ADHD. And I'll talk about each of them, but I'm just going to say all 4 first. The first one is side effects from medication that are taken for ADHD or ASD could cause symptoms that mimic depression.
Because I know
or that make you depressed.
They mess with the chemicals.
Yeah.
They mess with the dopamines.
Anytime you're messing with brain chemicals, side effects can get crazy. The second one is that genetic or environmental factors cause the ADHD or the ASD, and I'm kind of leaning more towards that one. The third one would be that the depression is caused by the ADHD/ASD or the socioeconomic factors that come with it. So that's more you never feel good enough. You never feel like you're doing the right thing.
You're letting people down because they have to pick up your slack.
Yes, and a lot of ADHD people have problems with impulsive spending, so they're always on the struggle bus financially, and it just contributes to a lower quality of life. And then the fourth category is that there is a third disorder that would complicate it more. So you'd have ADHD and depression and anxiety or substance abuse disorders. And that third disorder is really what contributes to the depression or causes the depression. The first one is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm actually going to do an ADHD medications episode in the coming weeks, but yeah, there's a lot of side effects to different irritability.
And you can't poke around in the brain.
Right.
So changing the chemicals around is just an experiment.
Yeah.
Every time you take a new medication that messes with those chemicals, you're experimenting on yourself.
And everybody's different.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't react the way your brain does, even though we have the same disorder.
Yep.
My favorite category, or the one I agree with the most, would be the genetic and environmental factors. And I don't know what the statistics are, to be honest with you, but it's a super high amount of children get ADHD from their parents. It is very hereditary. They found it in the genetics. It's there. I don't think it's even like a 50% chance that you're going to get ADHD. I think it's a much higher percentage. And of all psychiatric disorders, depression actually shows the highest genetic correlation with ADHD and ASD. So there are genes that share the tendency to have ADHD and also depression. So it can be hereditary. It can come down from your family line. I honestly think that's a lot of what it is in my life personally. Just knowing who my parents and my grandparents were, and
the struggle being harder now makes a lot of sense with environmental factors.
Yes. And this is the part that makes me very sad and I struggled with. So when you get into the environmental factors, there are actually numerous studies that show that children, and especially boys, are treated poorly by their mothers in childhood. And this environmental factor is thought to be very high correlated with later depression. They even did a study with unrelated adopted children that had ADHD, so the parent didn't have ADHD, and it's almost disturbing how much different it is. They use the word maltreatment quite a lot. It says ADHD symptoms were associated with a steeper increase in negative mother-child relationships across adolescence. So there are numerous studies that say because children with ADHD are harder, that they do not receive the same parenting that children without ADHD would, and that typically it involves maltreatment, which knowing my son and knowing that the diagnosis is in our future just gutted me.
Yeah.
The idea, yeah.
I'm struggling.
I'm trying not to cry. The idea that, I mean, and it even went into parents with ADHD still treat their ADHD children more poorly. And I try really hard with Connor to let him know that it's, his brain does work differently. We had a conversation this morning. He forgot to do something, and I reminded him, Mom, I just forgot. I'm always forgetting.
Oh.
And I said, hey, buddy, that's gonna be life. That's how our brains work sometimes. We have to try a little bit harder to remember things. And he looked at me and he said, well, Mom, maybe I'm just not a smart boy. Thank you for making your cry face, because it does make me laugh a little. And I said, oh no, baby, you are still a smart boy. Sometimes we just have to find different ways to make our brains work. And
Give me a second. I have to go find Connor.
I have to pull him out of school now.
Excuse me, Connor's teacher. I need to give him a hug.
I just need to hug this kid for a while. I know I'm not on the list, but I need to.
His mom said it was open.
So I have that. I feel like having ADHD helps me connect with him in a way that I can help him through this world. And reading that it isn't that way for a lot of children. And I get it. ADHD makes us hard to control our emotions. It makes, rejection sensitivity disorder. I can see why we have a harder time with children that are harder.
If you think back on when we were kids in elementary school, ADHD was bad to have. Mm-hmm. It was the naughty kids. It was the hyperactive kids who wouldn't who wouldn't stay in their seats. And
were punished by not being able to go out for recess,
which is what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so our parents didn't know the right coping skills. And I'm not saying mine specifically or yours specifically, because as girls we were very different ADHD. Right. But our generation of parents weren't taught to teach us those coping skills. Mm-hmm. And so we have to figure out how to teach those coping skills.
I hope these statistics change as our generation starts raising these babies. And I know some people in our generation started before us and have older children. And hopefully that does change, because we have the tools and the words and the abilities to be able to have these conversations. Please don't take your child's ADHD out on your kids. And it was kind of eye-opening for me too, I'll talk to my husband about it, because maybe it will put that thought in my brain, and maybe it'll put the thought into other people's brains that it's not their fault.
Right.
Connor doesn't forget things on purpose. He does try really hard. I forget things all the time, so expecting my 7-year-old to remember everything is just impossible.
And figuring out the right coping skill. If it's something, does he need to remember his lunchbox? Maybe he wears a bracelet that has beads that remind him what he needs to pack, or a chart.
We use Alexa for a lot of things, because you can set timers and things.
And kids love talking to Alexa.
Connor's whole morning is scheduled by Alexa. He wakes up on his own. He has an alarm clock. He comes downstairs, and at a certain time, Alexa tells him that it's time to get dressed. And Alexa tells him to check his backpack and make sure he has everything. And it reminds him what days he has to bring gym shoes, because whatever days gym is. And then it tells him when to get dressed and when to brush his teeth and when to leave for the school bus.
I love that. I never thought of that.
It's been huge. And it gives him that independence. So I think a lot of issues with ADHD children or autism spectrum is that we have a hard time letting them be more independent because
we're worried they'll forget.
So I always grab Connor's water bottle because I know he'll always forget. But maybe I should put something at the door that reminds him that he needs to grab his water bottle so that he can form those routines and those habits without me always doing it for him.
Remember when he's older and has his own apartment and he's about to leave for work, whether it's a photo he has by the door of, a fruit.
Right.
Maybe he has his decoration and he goes, oh, my lunch, grab it. Or a poem that he recites as he goes out the door every day, or that you can teach him these things we're all gonna lose it.
Oh yeah.
Like all of us, every parent. If you tell me you haven't lost it on your child, you're lying to me.
Exactly.
And that's okay, as long as you use it as a teaching moment and say, I'm sorry we lost it, we should have talked it out, blah, blah,
that was
blah.
Inappropriate for mom to speak like that.
Yep.
I don't let you yell at me. Like, yeah, absolutely. And giving them that gives them the tools to not only admit when they're wrong, but compromising, problem solving, and forming routines for themselves, building these habits. Yes, so being mistreated as a child, surprisingly enough, can cause depression later in life.
Wow, weird.
Yeah, super weird. This also happens with friendships and things. So if kids are bullied or treated differently at school, it can cause depression. And we know that ADHD children or ASD children might be treated differently because they act differently or they don't catch on as quickly or whatever. But the interesting part and this kind of brings this back up so we don't have to cry anymore. Yeah. It is evened out if the child or the person has at least one good support system. So if the kid is bullied at school, but they have very good, wonderful, beautiful, supportive parents at home, you don't see that depression as much. Or if they have parents at home that are treating them poorly, but they have a really good group of friends or a really good best friend that's very supportive, you don't see as high a correlation with depression.
Good. Okay.
So I thought that was wonderful. So as long as we are ensuring that we are treating our children right and that we're giving them the tools they need, it won't matter if they're bullied at school because they at least know they can depend on us.
And it feels nice to know if we can't control every aspect of their lives, if we can help them in others, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. So, back on to some of the I think I'm done crying now.
I still have to give Connor a hug and yell at him for saying that. Right? Should I be mad at him for that, or should I just cry?
You are a smart boy.
How dare you say that about my friend?
Yeah. And this 3 kind of goes along with that same idea. 3 is about the depression being caused by the ADHD or the factors that are caused by having ADHD. So this is the kids that are the people that are depressed because they don't feel like they can function. Yep. They're watching everybody around them succeed and they just don't get it. So, yeah, I mean, and this one spoke to me too because, yeah, if you can't take a test because you are overstimulated by Susie over there coughing and Joe over there, erasing, and little Smarty Pants already finished and turned everything in, you just feel dumb.
Yep.
Especially as a child, your brain doesn't say, oh, well, I just need a different environment. If I could take this test in the hallway, I could get it 100%. Kids don't have that ability. So hopefully, again, with our generation raising this next generation and knowing these things, and hopefully at some point finding out about IEPs and accommodations and things that can be done that aren't giving the kid a chance to cheat or succeed, but just giving them the chance to even the playing field. I absolutely see why people with ADHD might have depression later in life because of their sense of being competent, being able to succeed, being able to push. And this is also seen with in the autism spectrum disorders, and kind of goes back to the second fact as well, that especially with more severe autistic symptoms, a lot of people don't have the ability, they lose those social skills, or they don't have those social skills. So they end up being very lonely or not having a support system, and that just leads to a poor quality of life and then depression. And then the last one, again, is pretty self-explanatory. The thought that the depression might be due to another disorder or another, a lot of times people with ADHD have issues with addictions and substance abuse, and that absolutely can cause issues. Anxiety is often related to ADHD, usually because we're always worried that we're forgetting something, or we lost something, or we can't find something, or we can't remember something.
And we don't shut down.
And
there's so much
our brains are just like this all the time.
I've got to get
Every day.
so much done. And a lot of times, for me, my environment is a bit chaotic. Especially like right now, because I'm mid-construction in several areas of my home. And looking around makes me think, okay, I've got to get laundry, I've got to get those dishes in the dishwasher, and I've got to do this, and I've got to work, and I've got to research my podcast topic. And to be frank, there's not enough hours in the day.
Right.
And thankfully, knowing that, I will let things slide. Like right now, it's the messiness. My house is chaos right now. It's clean, but it's messy.
There's just a lot of stuff. Because you have so many places in your house right now that you can't put things.
I can't have stuff.
And again, with ADHD, we have a lot of stuff.
A lot. And I cut down on my stuff when I moved. And I still have stuff.
Well, you've been here 5 years now. You've had time to acquire more stuff.
Stuff acquiring time.
All right, and then that paper just kind of ended with some just other facts and ideas about the connection. It's important to know that ADHD or depression with ADHD tends to be more severe, has an earlier age at onset, and a worse prognosis than somebody who's neurotypical, but also that a lot of people are misdiagnosed as depression instead of ADHD.
Or because their depression is maybe overtaking the ADHD for that time. So, and they share a lot of
absolutely
symptoms. You're exhausted when you're depressed. You're exhausted when you have ADHD.
exhausted all the time.
I just can't win.
Interestingly enough, in ASD, depression onset is usually at a similar age than it would be in the neurotypical population. But people that are late diagnosed autistic have a higher risk for more severe depression. And this is probably because, again, they've known their whole lives they were different, or that something wasn't working right, and everybody else just told them they were dumb, or they just needed to try harder. Or they, just needed to focus, just try.
This brings me back to this little comic that I've had in my back pocket for years.
I already know which one you're talking about. It's such a good one.
Got her arm cut off, and the person's like, well, have you tried not losing your arm? Or I think it's, have you tried not having cancer?
Right. Have you tried not thinking about it?
Maybe if you just got out of bed, you wouldn't have the flu. You would not say that to someone like that.
Right. You would never look at somebody with cancer and be like, well, but I feel like that sometimes too. You just need to try harder.
Yep. And I've actually used the comic to get that point across to someone before, who looked at me while I was having depression issues and said, well, could you just try to be happy?
I would punch that person in the face if I ever saw them, and recognize them, because truly I would never recognize them at this point. They also said that previous depression diagnoses are highly prevalent among individuals diagnosed with autism disorder in adulthood. So again, depression could, people that are, again, they share a lot of symptoms. So the depression might be masking the autism or the ADHD. And just like you were just talking about, many depression symptoms are ADHD, ASD symptoms such as irritability, reduced sleep, reduced appetite, loss of concentration. In ASD, you typically see restlessness and insomnia more with depression than you do in ADHD, which I thought was interesting. But if you are experiencing bigger symptoms than those, such as, not feeling happy in your normal activities that used to make you happy, not being able to find pleasure in anything you're doing, if you're having thoughts about unaliving yourself, if your motor skills are like, people actually notice that you're moving slower than you normally do, speaking slower, thinking slower, those tend to be more depression. So if you have ADHD and you know you have ADHD, but you start having these more severe symptoms, it might be time to talk to your psychiatrist or whoever your prescriber is about something else. Whether you choose to add a medication or different treatment.
A nutrition routine, an exercise routine.
So another issue is the moods and feeling questionnaire that all the doctors are using these days to test or to see if you have depression aren't really useful for people that already have ADHD or ASD, because some of the things on there are things you deal with all the time with ADHD. I think one of them is like, how have you had days in the last 2 weeks where you have trouble doing things that you're supposed to do? I'm like, well, yeah, every single day.
Every day of my life.
But that doesn't mean I'm always depressed.
Do you have trouble sitting still? Literally every moment of my life.
Right.
I don't think I've ever sat still in my life. I learned after I got married to Ryan that my legs don't stop moving until I fall asleep. I cricket all night.
Oh.
And if like a song or something plays on a phone, a video, the TV, I dance to it.
While you're sleeping?
No, as I'm falling asleep.
That's amazing. I will hold on to that fun fact for the rest of my life.
For your Jessica episode?
Yes. Let me tell you. Fun fact.
Terrible.
Mm-hmm. The good news is, so an interesting thing is when you're dealing with children that have ADHD and may be depressed, you really want to focus more on the parent training, so helping the parents learn how to appropriately act and react with their ADHD, ASD child, working on social skills so that they can connect with others more and they have more of a support system is really what helps children. But the CBT, or the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is more about like changing the way you think or working more on eating healthy, exercising, and that sort of thing, is not very effective in children, but it is more effective than anything else in adults.
Interesting. I guess it makes sense. I mean, I can rationalize that in my brain.
Yeah. So you're not going to, I do sit down with Connor and talk about, how we react in emotional situations, but me working on how I handle him or how Zach handles him and making sure he knows how to interact with his friends without always touching them or yelling in their face or doing these hyperactive actions is going to work better for Connor now. And then for me to help my depression and ADHD, I need to focus on changing my mindset, working on my behaviors, eating healthier, sleeping longer, all of those things. And another reason depression tends to be missed with ADHD is that doctors always focus on the most concerning disorder. And typically, if it's been noticed that there is ADHD, if you're not just telling them it's depression instead of actually treating them, the doctor is going to focus more on treating the ADHD, treating those symptoms, and the depression kind of just gets left in the background. The good news is there are some medications now that can help with both. And a lot of times, honestly, if you treat the ADHD, you do see some of the depression symptoms lessen. And I think that goes back to what we said about just not feeling like we're drowning anymore.
Yes.
Feeling like we can actually get things done. The only other paper that I read that I thought was interesting, and this kind of leads back into our accountability group, people that had ADHD and depression and how often they exercised. And surprise, surprise, the study showed that people with ADHD that worked out less had worse depression, and people with ADHD and depression that exercise started to feel better.
I hate that paper. Why can't they, like, prove that eating chips and watching Lord of the Rings makes people feel better?
And is good for us.
Like chocolate.
Right.
I hate these findings.
I hate it when scholarly research proves that I have to be better.
I don't want to move.
So, again, I'm not a doctor. That is one suggestion from one paper. I have 2 apps that I started using that I think will help me on my journey. But I love your idea of the accountability group, so I do think we are going to make sure to do that. So if you want to join our accountability group and
you
have
join Dungeons and Exercise.
And if we've not already invited you, then you can find us.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Ask to join. We'll probably keep it a private group.
I would think
so. That we can post about things that we don't want just out there in the whole universe. So
Yeah,
you'll probably have to request to join. But we would love to help you on your journey and be honest with you about our journey.
And if you know someone who would like the group but doesn't necessarily listen to the podcast, invite them and then ask them why they're not listening to the podcast.
Because it'll make them feel better.
Obviously. Did you say hopefully?
Hopefully. One thing I wanted to make sure I did when I decided to use these 2 apps is I have always failed in the past because I try to do too much at once. So this time I tried to do something different. I mean, probably because I am in such a deep funk that I needed to go easy on myself, otherwise I wasn't going to do it. But I chose very small goals, and I found 2 very cute apps that I want to use. The first one is called Finch.
Okay.
And you have a little bird that you get to name and give a gender to. And you have to, by taking care of yourself, it takes care of this bird. So you are raising this tiny, cute little bird, and it talks to you, and it gives you motivational, like, happy things, and it checks in with you, like, how are you feeling now? And so I did that. I have it free. It's the free version. It's got a ton of usefulness. It's not one of those apps where you can put in like 3 goals and that's it unless you pay for the paid version. There's a ton of stuff even on the free version, and it already had some ideas of goals, so I didn't feel super silly putting it. The only goals I put in are to eat breakfast, to drink water, to exercise for 3 minutes a day, which was that app's suggestion, so I didn't feel silly about it, to get enough sleep, and to make sure I take my meds and my vitamins. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals per day.
And a lot of them are really short, like taking your meds.
And things that I really should be doing anyway. So I didn't put in there that I was suddenly going to start working out 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week. I didn't put in there that I was going to eat a healthy breakfast, or even that I was going to eat. Actually, I'm pretty sure it just says breakfast because I tend to drink my breakfast. I do a lot of smoothies and shakes. It didn't say how much water. I'm not counting every drop of water I put in my mouth to try to, get the little buttons filled up on my counting app or whatever. It's just simple. And everything I do earns me points. Sometimes when I check in, it asks me a question and I can do a little journal. and there's just a ton of functionality I haven't even gotten into yet. It has exercises, it has journal prompts, it has quizzes about anxiety and depression and stress, and lots of ideas on like self-care ideas and how to take care of yourself and your cute little bird. The other one I downloaded, and I think this one is probably the more important one, especially with the way my brain works and liking data and science and all the things. It's called Dailyo, and it's actually like a mood tracker journal. So it lets me set it up with, I can put in all these different activities that I might do throughout a day. So I can put in, you know, did I work at the township today? Did I do real estate today? What was the weather like? Did I exercise? Did I not exercise? Did I go out drinking instead? You can basically put in your whole day, and then you give that day an emotion. Like, was it a good day? Was it a bad day? And eventually, it will keep track of all of that for me, and it will be able to show me trends. So I feel happier on days that I exercise, that I spend time with my family, that I drink my water, that I get enough sleep. Because for my brain and for me, I think having that in front of my face and having like actual data will help my brain to understand that what I'm doing is helping. I want more good days, and I want to know that what I'm doing to improve myself is giving me more good days. There's my plug for 2 apps and my happy note.
I wrote them down. So you took us on this journey where we cried. I actually went on, this is my transition, by the way. I actually went on another journey. It was weird.
Yay!
I mean, for some reason my topics seem to like change. I don't know.
They
seem
start
to
out
freak me out.
innocent seeming, and then they always take a weird turn.
So it was like, I'm digging the creepy vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do
a lot of people are digging your creepy vibes.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And surprising that I bring the creepy vibes. I mean, not out of the two of us, but just in general. I'm not a creepy vibe kind of person, but I'm digging it.
I am too.
So I decided that I was going to talk about the Winchester Mystery House. And I have 2 stories to tell you. I'm going to tell you the story I thought I would be telling you. And then I'm going to tell you the BA story that is actually behind the Winchester Mystery House.
I love this plan.
So, the Winchester Rifle folks made shirts to start. What a strange transition. Yeah.
They're like, we need a new business plan.
I want to make more money.
Guns.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally work nowadays, too.
So there was some war stuff brewing, so that's kind of where they went. So the big Winchester man went to his factory and grabbed one of his t-shirt engineers, and they started making guns. And then they made a lot of money. The bad thing about Winchester is that he didn't care who he sold his guns to. So good guys, bad guys, in between guys, all the guys got guns. He just wanted the money. Yeah. So, really, this story is about Sarah. She's not actually a Winchester. She married into the family. Mm-hmm. So, Big Winchester had a son, and they lived across the street from Sarah and her family. Okay. She was raised by an architect. He worked with wood. He was a great designer. This was like Victorian era, so fancy, cool furniture and this stuff that we pay a fortune for now. Mm-hmm. And so they were doing very well. They were well off already. Middle class, I guess. Upper middle class. And then she married the son of Big Winchester. I don't have his name, so I'm not going to tell you what his name is. He's not important. He's going to die.
He was a boy. That's all I got.
The interesting thing about Sarah Winchester is that when she was born in 1839, her parents raised her sort of progressively. She was still into like the role of the woman of the household and stuff like that, but her parents, ironically, taught her to question the narrative.
Yay.
Yes.
I like Sarah Winchester already.
Yes.
And her parents.
And her parents. So she married Big Winchester's son. And that was in 1862. She and her husband lost her husband's sister, so her sister-in-law. She had a baby, and after 1 month of this baby's life, she passed away. And then the baby passed away. It was really tragic. So then about 4 years after that, Sarah had a baby and lost her baby.
Aww.
After that, they had a few years of good times, about 10, 14, 15 years together. And then her husband's mother and father died. Then her husband died.
Holy cow.
Yeah, she went through a lot.
She is all alone now.
She is alone. And she was left this huge inheritance. So there's no Winchesters left except for Sarah. And she's married in. And she lost her only child. So it was really strange circumstances that she just ended up incredibly wealthy. A few years later, she lost her oldest sister. So she decided she was going to move. She wanted...
She stuck around
Yeah.
way longer than I probably would have.
Exactly.
To be honest.
She must have had really healthy habits.
She had a really good accountability group.
Exactly. So she decided at 46 years old to move to California. She had a lot of happy memories there, vacationing with her husband. And
she had all the money in the world now.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. She can do whatever she wants.
Mm-hmm.
So she decided she was going to move there. She asked her sisters to join her, and they did. Before she moved, it is rumored that she went to a well-known medium, which apparently women of means at the time they would kind of do that, sort of like a parlor tricky type thing.
Bridgerton.
Yeah, okay.
They do that
in
Bridgerton.
So, she did that first and spoke to this medium. I'm going to tell you what he said in a minute. And after she spoke to him, she moved to California with her sisters. She purchased an 8-bedroom ranch house, and it was on 45 acres. So, the medium told her that she was being haunted by all the souls that Winchester rifles caused. So all the deaths, all the souls of the people who were killed by these rifles.
Oh.
The medium told her that she needed to move to California, that this was the right move, and that when she got there, she needed to build a home for all of the spirits. And she needed to build it with... what's the right way to say it? It needed to be fancy. It needed to be nice because only the nice spirits should be there. Any of the evil spirits shouldn't.
Okay.
Yep. And then the work on this house should never end. If it does, she would have horrible luck or possibly die. So, Sarah moved.
I'm finally starting to... Like, I knew the name.
Yes.
But I couldn't remember the backstory to it. But now it's all starting to come together.
So, she moved. She started building... I don't know. I didn't see if she demolished the farm home and started building from scratch, or if she just started expanding upon the farmhouse. But... as she started construction, things got weird. The home ended up being 24,000 square feet with 160 rooms, and it took 38 years to complete. She worked on it until the day she died. So,
holy cow.
Yes, and it was a Victorian home, but the really strange thing is that the home appears to be built by someone who is losing their mind. There are many odd things, such as stairs that end at the ceiling. They don't go anywhere. There are doors that open to nothing. There's one door that opens to a 15-foot drop, and one door that opens to an 8-foot drop that ends in a kitchen sink. There's a skylight in the floor of the upstairs bedroom that looks down into another bedroom.
We don't kink shame here.
Right? Hey. It was the 1800s. They did what they did.
Yep. They couldn't get mechanical toys or anything. They had to...
They just had skylights.
Voyeurs.
Yeah.
Put skylights in their bedroom floors.
Yeah, for sure. So, there's also a vast network of secret passages.
Oh, I love that.
In 2016, they actually found another hidden room. It's said that there are 9 secret rooms that they found so far.
Let's go live there.
Right? One of the cabinet doors opens up into 30 more rooms.
What?
Okay, so 30 rooms. Can you imagine opening I picture it being a cupboard door, under your kitchen sink.
Like your weird room here. You just open it, you think it's a coat closet, and it's like...
30 more rooms.
Why
Surprise.
is there a hallway that looks like a hotel?
Now, it said that as Sarah built, she just felt tremendous guilt for all of the deaths caused by these rifles. In the 1900s, she really started to decline in health. She started losing teeth and arthritis, and she was very reluctant to leave the house, earning her reputation as a recluse. And even newspapers at the time, which apparently were just gossip columns, started writing about how unique she is and how strange she is. If you go into the house, you can go in and tour it. Mm-hmm. There are 13, 11, and 7 in most of the rooms. Not the numbers, written on the floor, count or something. But, 13 sconces in the room, or 13 windows in a room.
Really?
And it said that she was very superstitious and kind of obsessed with these numbers. Said that Sarah would sleep in a different room every single night.
I mean, if you got
the
30
space,
extra
you got the
rooms.
space. It said that it was to keep the spirits away from her. And a lot of her strange architecture was said to be there to confuse the spirits, so that they wouldn't be able to get to her, but so that they would also be happy with their grand new home. It is
and these are supposed to be the nice spirits,
right?
Like the nice things.
Yep, exactly. It's said that if you take the tour, you might feel cold spots, hear footsteps, smell cooking smells, hear odd sounds, whispering, doors and windows slamming, and just feelings of overall being watched. It is sometimes referred to as one of the world's most haunted houses. I visited their website, of course, as one does.
Because, of course, they have their own website.
Of course. And I wanted to talk about some of the things they say on their website. Now, of course, their website is trying to sell tickets, but there are 3 types of hauntings that are believed to be in the house. One is residual. So it's like when a tape or something gets stuck on repeat.
Okay.
It's just that moment kind of frozen in time, replaying over and over in the house, in that spot. So, there's a wheelbarrow ghost who pushes a wheelbarrow outside all the time in the same spot. It's where he's seen, that's where he's at. It's what he does.
What a weird thing to be stuck doing in the afterlife.
What was in the wheelbarrow?
Dun dun dun! That was beautiful.
That was magical. Oh, it actually says that it's full of ash and coal. Whose ash?
Right. And coal.
Someone named coal?
There we go. It's play on words.
It's the ash of coal.
And coal.
Now this one is, in my opinion, the stinking creepiest, and these are the intelligent hauntings, which are just ghosts that ghost. Footsteps, turning on faucets and leaving them running. This is not direct from the website. This is me talking about what an intelligent ghost would be. It does say there are a lot of footsteps. The man who reports this said as he tried to follow the footsteps, it seemed they were always just ahead of him, and he could not ever quite reach them. Oh. And then the third, which is also creepy, are shadow figures. They're seen all over the home.
I hate shadow figures.
Yep. So that's all I'm going to talk about, because I want to get into those.
That's it. Ooh, I just had deja vu.
Ooh, was it ash and coal? Was it ash of coal?
It must have been. They must be haunting me now.
Exactly.
They wanted us to know.
Better than me. And so Sarah Winchester did, obviously, she passed away. She was 83, so she lived a pretty good long life.
Yep.
Now I want to tell the story that I learned, because the story I expected to tell was what I just told you. I knew of the Winchester house. I'd heard it told many times in that same way. Not word for word. I'm not a plagiarizer. But, so the truth is, Sarah Winchester was born. She married the Winchester guy. I should have written his name down. I wrote his father's name down.
She married some guy.
She married the son of William Wirt Winchester.
He was probably just William the Third.
Right, yeah. Bill, if you will.
Good old Bill.
And she did lose all of those family members. There is actually no report that she ever went to see a medium or was ever told to build this house repeatedly or
she was
continuously.
Being haunted by
yes
spirits of a gun.
Yes.
Guns that she didn't even make.
Right. It is also said in that same vein that she didn't feel guilty about where her fortune came from. Maybe she had an inkling of, sadness for the people that had died or something.
Right.
There's no proof that she had guilt.
Yeah, I would feel guilty over my entire family dying and
exactly, yeah,
leaving me all this money, but I would not have guilt over... maybe I would have guilt, but she did not have, especially in that time.
No, it was just what you did.
Yeah.
And so those, so she moved to California. This is all true. She bought the farmhouse. She did start working on it. Now, being raised by an architect, a woodworker, she loved the Victorian style and all of the detail and all of the fun stuff that happened with that style. I mean, even if it's not your style, you can admit it is beautiful.
For sure.
You can really appreciate all the work and love that they put into it. She just loved that, and she had money. Mm-hmm. And so she started building. It was not unusual back then to build a lot of small rooms, build them into the house so that you maybe have a bedroom in the middle of the house that doesn't have access to the outside. And that was because of heat and cold. Small rooms were easier to light a fireplace, shut the doors, and warm. It was easier to open a window and cool down a small space. It was just very common to do. And she did have all of the things that you would find in a proper, quote-unquote, Victorian home. She had all the sitting rooms, and she had 5 kitchens because she had so many people working for her and with her that she wanted to make sure they were taken care of. Yeah.
Good for her.
So some of the weird things, like stairs that go up to ceilings and doors that open to nothing, a lot of the explanation is, one, Sarah had a lot of money. She would start building something, and halfway through the project, if she thought she was not going to be happy with it, she would stop it, and she would start something new. And instead of getting rid of that part of the house, she would just shut the door.
She doesn't need it anymore.
I don't need it anymore.
I don't want to heat this anymore. It's stupid.
Exactly. And I think that was a kind of a trend of Victorian building, and they didn't fix things, quote unquote. They worked around them.
Right.
So it's kind of like those razor holes that they would put in bathrooms back in the day.
Right.
So now when you open up a bathroom and razor blades fall out, it's terrifying. I love telling people that fact, but anyway, so that was one thing, and it almost makes me wonder, and this is absolutely complete speculation, which I told Ryan and he decided that this was like full-blown fact. I have to wonder if Sarah actually had some ADHD. Seeing a project she didn't think was gonna bring that dopamine, she stopped it and move on.
Yep.
The other weird thing that happened to Sarah while she was living in this house is that let's start here. Originally, the house was 7 stories at this point. This is going terribly.
The end.
That's all. I'm not going to tell you how cool Sarah was.
There were ghosts. It was bad.
They were bad.
The end.
Okay. The other occurrence that happened while Sarah had the house and what might have led to some of this weird construction. The house was 7 stories at one point. I know, right?
I can't even
For, like, her and her sisters. So there was a huge...
How many sisters were there?
There were originally 5.
And at least...
including her.
Okay, and at least one died.
One died, and then the 3 moved to California
so
with her.
4 people
Yes.
living. Okay.
And a lot of help, which I will get to because that is actually really cool. So it was 7 stories, and a huge earthquake happened. And around the same time, probably because of the earthquake, a huge silo full of water burst and flooded the area. So some of Sarah's house was destroyed.
Okay.
And so instead of, I don't get this part, but instead of taking care and like removing the bad parts, they would just work around them. So a story's missing now. In the end, if you go to visit it now, it is 4 stories. So they lost 3 stories, which would explain stairs to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And, doors that open 15 feet drops. Balconies that they didn't replace because she figured why bother? Or it might have been in their old age. So some of this weird stuff is explainable. She did also, in a letter that she wrote to someone that they have, said that she was unhappy with one of the rooms because it was so dark, so she had a skylight put in. And when the skylight was put in, it started leaking almost immediately. And she...
As they do.
Yeah, of course. I know, skylights. Notorious. And so she had it worked over. She just left it there, but worked around it.
Right.
So maybe that was the skylight in that bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I thought was... all these bedrooms, if she was sleeping in a different room every night, maybe it was literally logistically easier to maybe heat that one room all day or keep it clean. So, she was wanting the sheets cleaned every night. Maybe she just switched rooms so that she'd have those clean sheets.
Felt bad about all the empty space.
I will probably forever stand up for Sarah, because she did some incredibly cool things. In this time, Japanese and Chinese immigrants were very well hated by people in this country. She hired them to work for her and paid them twice what they would have earned anywhere else.
Aww.
She was known for treating her staff as family. She bought her staff homes, or built them homes on her property when they would get married.
Aww.
And they loved her. They actually, after she passed away, they came out and said she was never superstitious. She was not losing her faculties at any point. She stayed sharp up until her death. And another really cool thing about her is that she was, I'm going to read this as a direct quote, she was scientifically curious and technologically forward. She was actually one of the first persons? One of the first people to use wool insulation as well as carbide gas lights in her home.
Really?
Which I think is amazing, as a woman especially. The construction that nowadays people say just went on and on and on and she never stopped construction is not true. In another letter she wrote, she said, I was working on this project and wasn't happy with how it was going, so I sent the workmen away as it was almost winter and I was feeling tired. After our winter, I called them back and had them start on a different project. It is obviously far more eloquent than what I just said, but that's the wrap up of it, basically. She was kind of a pioneer, and...
Which is probably why people spread so many rumors about her, honestly.
Yes, very much. And she had lost so many people. She might have been a little strange. And actually, if she had ADHD, it would have been even more.
Right.
Because she wouldn't have followed those society norms and stuff like that.
And grief can destroy you.
Oh my gosh.
So
and she went through so
that
much.
And a child and...
So, the hauntings have never actually been proven. They call it one of the most haunted houses in the world, and it is just never been proven to be haunted. I don't know how they do that. Oh, she was fluent in several languages.
I love that.
Yep. Being a very educated woman back then especially would have been very odd.
Mm-hmm. And she never remarried.
Never remarried.
So that would seem odd.
Yep. She just, in the end, instead of telling you about this creepy ghost house, I wound up finding all this information on this really cool woman.
That's amazing. I love this.
I know.
This
I
is
did
my
too.
Favorite. And the whole time I was thinking to myself, if I had money like that and knew because of who I was that I was going to be in history somehow, I'd probably do that just to screw with people.
Right. Well, and then she was quoted after all of the earthquake and flood damage had been taken care of. She was quoted saying, "Yes, my house looks quite like a madman had envisioned it." She knew it was wacky.
Right. And she loved it.
Yeah. I'm sure. And I just think she was incredible, and I did not expect to get this cool, wholesome women who rock story out of it. And I did. It was so cool.
I love that.
I know. It might be the best twist any of my topics have ever taken.
I think so.
I'm really excited.
And I was not expecting that.
No, not at all. She's so cool. And there are people on TikTok who used to work on the tour. And they said, if you ever take the tour, pay really close attention to the verbiage that people use, because the people who work in the home learn all this cool stuff about Sarah, and they come to respect her a lot, but they still have to have ghost tours, because that's what brings in the money.
Because that's what the tourists want.
Exactly. So she said a lot of times they use things like speculated and rumor has it and things like that.
Those safe words.
One cool thing is that after Sarah died, she gave a bit of her fortune to a hospital that she had created to honor her late husband.
Aww.
As well as the rest of it went to her staff. All of the rest of her money.
Really?
Which would have been life-changing to some of them at that time.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, she was already paying them really well, so. But the house sold, and the people who bought the house wanted to run with this Sarah Winchester's a crazy woman and had all these superstitions. So some of the rooms that you see the numbers 7, 11, and 13 in are fabricated. They didn't add them until after.
Really?
Her staff said she never cared about that.
What jerks?
I know, right? But money. So
yep,
that's what they wanted and cared about. And so it's fascinating. I'm thrilled that it took this turn. I was happy to tell you guys a creepy story. I am thrilled that I got to tell you about this baller woman.
Yeah, this might be my favorite twist.
Yeah,
that's ever happened.
Who would have seen it coming? I like this episode. I really was excited to talk about that topic. And
you did a great job bringing us back up.
Thanks. I'm not usually the one.
Since I made you cry. So.
It was Connor that made me cry.
True.
I'm blaming
him. Jerk. Jeez, Connor.
Right. Jeez. You're out of the glitter cult.
Oh no. He's gonna be so sad.
He didn't even know he was part of it. This has been Dungeons and Dopamine Podcast.
You can listen to us anywhere you stream podcasts and on YouTube.
You can also find us on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Insta, and Reddit.
And you can reach out to us at any of those social media options, or you could email us at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions. Thank you. We love you. Bye.
Bye.